afternoon, folks. Let's let people tune in. Make sure my phone's muted. Talking somewhat into the mic today. Start getting caffeinated. Dude, I still ain't had a cup of coffee today. This is my first sip of caffeine. Let me do this before I... Oh, thank God. This is how I know God had some sort of inclination toward liking us. He give us caffeine. Oh, good morning, Mama Quill. How you doing today? All right, so let's just jump in. A little bit of a slow start, but I saw a post the other day, right? And it said Flint students are not college ready. Now, a friend of the show jumped on. He had said, "No, that's not true. I know plenty of Flint students who are in college," and he listed off the schools. That's not what college ready means, though. Just because you go to school doesn't mean that you were ready for school. Our students here are so far behind the national average, the state average, even the local average. Beecher, Clio, Mount Morris, all these schools are pulling so far ahead of Flint schools. Even GISD schools are pulling far ahead of us. And it's a terrible, terrible thing. When our students aren't testing at the level that they should be just to be entry-level college students. So now they have to go back and do remedial courses, but now they're paying for it because it's college. That's an issue. Our kids can't read at the level that they're supposed to. They can't do math at the level they're supposed to. Their spelling is atrocious. It seems like everything they type up or say or even put pen to paper comes off a cell phone. When our students are either so lazy that they can't put 3 letters instead of 1 for you, or say just complete spelling inaccuracies and inconsistencies. And granted, I fall into this often. I'm a bit Dame Bramaged, and English was never my best subject. But some of these kids make me look like Einstein. And we all know I'm one of the dumbest people around. Exactly, Tracy. They get into college, then do remedial, but they're paying for it now. That is a failure in our schools. Because they have said it isn't their business, isn't their problem. They don't give a goddamn. That's costing our kids $1,200 a year to go to a remedial, and that's at the cheap end. That's mod. Let alone if they get into U of M or state or go out of state and have to pay out of state tuition. And it comes down to this. Our school board, while I have no problems putting them on blast. I have no problems calling out individual names and saying, you have failed our students here, 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 and here. This isn't on our school board, though. Our school board does a bit of policy and a lot of money. And yes, there are some failings that happen here. We don't have textbooks that came from this millennium in a lot of our classrooms. And they could go ahead and unfuck that. But one of the larger problems is on the administrative side. How our superintendent views and directs teachers in the schools directly impacts how our students perform. Our teachers, while they do as much as they can, as well as they can, within the parameters given to them by superintendent and the administration, that is it. They have the parameters given to them and the limitations given to them. That's a problem. So when I heard recently that Superintendent Kevin Jones was given a 4 out of 5 rating on his evaluation that he's supposed to have yearly. I believe this is his first one, at least to my count. The man has had this job for quite a while. I was in shock and disbelief. With our school system failing as hard as it is, how can you say this man is doing a good job anywhere in any way? Especially for how much we're paying him. Give me a second to pull up his contract because I love having things like that on hand. And always, always, always have some sort of backup, right? Some sort of way to show what you're talking about. So let me go into my mail contract. Which is this? Nope. That's all right. I believe the man is catching about 100 and something odd thousand a year more than the mayor. Here we are. We'll just go on down to compensation. Compensation, 169,500 a year. Is he worth that to us? That's just his base pay, ladies and gentlemen. Is his performance thus far worth 169,500 a year? No, not by a long shot. Especially without the credentials that we expect in a superintendent. The man was a teacher once, understood and appreciated, but without the furthering education or without some sort of administrative background, 169,500 a year is a ripoff. I'm saying he doesn't deserve that, and he doesn't deserve the position he's in currently. But it comes up to be a little bit more. Tax-deferred annuities, merit-based pay. The board agrees that the superintendent receives a highly effective rating in annual performance pursuant to Title V of this contract. Superintendent shall receive an additional $2,000 payment. The board shall remit this payment if on no later than June 30, part of the superintendent's compensation for the year ending in the date. All right. Automotive allowance. He picks up another $700 a month to pay for his car. Reimbursement for traveling for pretty much anything. Personal development. They pay for him to go and say better himself for in the purposes of being a superintendent. However, I have not seen anything from these personal development courses they're supposed to be going to that has equated into our children doing better. Because at the end of the day, everything a school does needs to be about our children. It doesn't feel like it is. It feels like some people are just taking a job out of it. My child is not a paycheck to you. If you want to be a teacher, I'm going to do my best to make sure you get the pay. But you got to be there because you love the job. The same goes if you're a principal. If you are someone who is there to help, such as a teacher's assistant or a special education assistant, or if you're in the administrative side. Many people in our school system have failed our students. Yes, including the board in some areas, including certain members of the board, more definitely. But today is about the administration. So they aren't teaching our kids the skills to get through life, how to do math, how to communicate effectively with one another, even how simple science works. Like when I was in school, we learned sodium was a very soft metal. You could cut it with a pocket knife. We also learned that if you don't keep it in, say, oil, mineral oil, It corrodes very quickly, and if you throw a chunk of it into water, it explodes. If you show kids you throwing a piece of metal into water from the schools here, you will shock and amaze them. And I'm talking high school seniors when they should have learned this in 7th grade. And then they aren't getting much of the social education they need. I'm not talking about some of the things we've gone into before. No, I'm talking about how to effectively communicate with each other, avoid resorting to violence. There was a problem that happened on my block. I'm not going to let that one go. But on City Council Day, Wednesday this week, there were 5 shootings in Flint. And I wonder how many of those can be traced back to students not learning how to effectively communicate and avoid violence in schools. It is a rough question. We send our kids to these schools for 8 hours a day, every Monday through Friday, except for holidays, for about 9 months out of the year. And it seems like we're just sending them to a babysitter. I would say free, but our taxes fund it. So it isn't even free. I'm paying way too much for a babysitter. Some folks without kids are paying entirely too much for other people's babysitters because it isn't education. It isn't informative to our students anymore. Tracy, I agree with you, but I don't want to jump on that subject today. That's one where I'm probably going to need to sit up here with a glass of whiskey. I mean, Mickey can hardly handle me without that and going on these tangents. Let's not do this to him today when it's so warm. But you're absolutely right. Our kids aren't getting what they need. The parents of the students, we aren't getting what we need. And this all falls on the administrative side. Where's a roadmap to how our schools are going to get our children up to standard and up to snuff? 10% efficient or proficiency in math and English. As a parent, I want to know, how are you as a school going to pick up your practices and be more effective for our students? As a taxpayer of the city of Flint, I want to know, because it comes out of my wallet whether I have kids in or not. And some of y'all, you may not have children in school anymore. What about your grandkids? These are all issues that we not only need to speak up about, but be loud about it. And you don't have to show up to school board meetings. I understand those chairs beat the hell out of my back. But being vocal on social network, Facebook, friends and family, all across town. You can write into the newspapers around here. God, I still can't believe we still have newspapers. And just write the editor or ask the editor, any of those, just to get the word out. It is such a shame. My oldest is in a GISD school, well, also run by Mott. FCS used to have a hand in there. They got kicked back from that. My youngest is in a charter school because I didn't believe my children were getting the education they needed from Flint Community Schools. That's not a lie. And then the fact that children are just passed along to be someone else's problem. Oh, you didn't pass math this year. You'll get it next year. In reality, it's teachers saying, I can't hold you back. I have to pass you forward. I hope you get it next year. And that is a continuing trend that they will face for 13 years from kindergarten to graduation. And many of them are going to be missing skills from 5 years prior. Without the ability to hold a child back and to say, look, I know you tried your hardest. Your hardest wasn't enough this time. We are going to rectify this. Because whenever they just pass a child ahead and they say, oh, well, you tried your hardest, that's sending the message that your hardest is always enough. Failure doesn't happen if you try your hardest. Yes, it does. And it's a hard reality of life. And it's something we need to let our children know early. Very early. Because when you get out into the real world and you fail at something, say you were given a deadline and you tried your hardest, but your boss still fires you. Now you feel like you've been slighted or cheated. Well, school always said doing your hardest was enough. And it isn't. We've all experienced failure in our lives. The biggest thing about it is coming up to the realization that your best isn't always enough and that you will fail at some point. And the sooner we get that done, the sooner we understand, the better. Unfortunately, that's not a lesson being taught in our schools. That's not something that we are actively doing. We're just promoting them. Well, Timmy, you don't know what 1 + 1 is, but you're going to the first grade. I have no problem saying I failed 7th grade, and I came out better for it. My second time through, I understood every piece that I didn't the first time, and it helped build into the 8th grade, 9th grade, 10th, 11th, and 12th. And I graduated second in my class in my high school because I was held back a year. I actually graduated a year early, so I graduated on time. And I can't thank the teacher that taught me that lesson in 7th grade enough. It was actually Sister Veronica Maria from Loretto Catholic School. She said, you didn't learn the lessons. I'm not going to pass you forward to be someone else's problem. You'll come back here with me next year. Yes, sister. And I got better for it. What's happened is, back in the Bush era, there was the No Child Left Behind Act that was subsequently repealed, but the practice is still in place. And there's this thought of a social stigma of being held behind a year. Get over it. I'd rather be made fun of because I got held back a year than not have the skills to succeed in the world. Not have the skills to make a living for myself, still having to live with mom and dad. In my case, that's no longer an option. But, being 19, 20, 21, having to live with mom and dad because you can't get a job because you don't understand. Or the possibility of not doing proper on your taxes and going to prison for a while. It is a really rough situation that we're putting our kids through in these schools. And Flint gets the brunt of it. This is a nationwide problem, but Flint is absolutely failing where many of those other schools are at least trying to make an effort. And I don't think this is worth one man collecting $169,500 a year. This ain't worth it. It ain't worth his car, his automotive. It ain't worth his bonus incentive. And somehow he gets a 4 out of 5 on his evaluation. This is bullshit. In Flint, it isn't what you know. It isn't how well you do. It's who you know that determines how well you succeed. Obviously, it seems like he knew someone to get him in this position in the first place. And then not getting his evaluation for several years, he knew someone that let that pass. I have no interest in being friends with anyone. I'll be completely honest. I wanted to have him on the show. That fell through because of me. However, I can't just keep silent about these failures and misgivings. Honestly, I don't care if he comes onto the show anymore. because this is just one of the worst things I've ever seen done to our students. Because negligence is an act in and of itself. I know a lot of you may not agree with the tone I'm putting forth on it. I don't think I'm wrong. Our kids deserve better. Flint deserves better. If we have students that actually start succeeding in large ways without having to have their hands held, then there's reason for businesses to come in here, because you have a bright populace that you don't have to import to hold on to these new jobs, to bring money into a community. Because when you have to start paying people moving cost, then you're just not going to want to do it. You're going to set up where they already are. We have no reason for our kids to stay in the city. There's no jobs here. Okay. What if we started having academic excellence? Help bring jobs here. Help keep schools here. Hell, maybe even bring in another college or two. Kettering's a hell of a school. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong, and if someone could point me to some evidence saying otherwise, I'll happily accept it. But in other news, we've heard that fireworks may come in August. I've heard two different things. One was the weather, which is bullshit. The other was the company was double booked or some odd excuse. We'll see if we get those in August. I highly doubt it. I mean, what is there to set off fireworks in August for? Just if you're not going to do it when you're supposed to do it, then just leave us in peace. This was a short one today. I think I've done said my piece, Mickey. Oh, I think Mickey died in the heat of the office. Hey, buddy. You want to go ahead and exit us out?
Yeah.
Yeah, we're done. You guys have a good day.